3 drops, that was all it would take. 3 drops of the clear liquid in the blue glass vial, and the Duke of Ashford would never wake up. The grandfather clock in the hallway struck 3 in the morning. Outside, the storm battered the castle walls, masking the sound of Lady Clara's bare feet on the stone floor. She stood over the bed, looking down at her husband of 2 weeks. Lord Julian Ashford slept soundly. His dark hair was tousled against the white pillow. His chest rose and fell in a slow, trusting rhythm. He looked peaceful. He looked innocent. Clara's hand trembled. She uncorked the vial. The smell of bitter almonds drifted up, sharp and deadly. She had spent 5 years planning this moment. She had lied, cheated, and seduced her way into this bedroom. She had sworn on her father's grave that she would wipe the Ashford line from the face of the earth. She hovered the vial over his open mouth, waiting for the intake of breath. "Do it, Clara." The voice didn't come from her head, it came from the bed. Clara gasped, nearly dropping the vial. Julian's eyes were open. They were grey, alert, and terrifyingly calm. He wasn't asleep. He had been watching her through his lashes. He didn't move. He didn't call for the guards. He simply looked at the poison hovering inches from his lips. "Your hand is shaking," he whispered. "You will spill it on the sheets." Clara froze. The room spun. He knew. "Why aren't you screaming?" she hissed, her voice cracking. "Because I have been waiting for this since the wedding night," Julian said softly. "Go on, pour it. Finish what your father started." Clara stared at him. The man she hated, the man she loved, the man who had just handed her permission to kill him. To understand why she couldn't pour it, we have to go back. Back to the beginning, when Clara wasn't a duchess, but a daughter of ruin, 3 months earlier. Clara stood in the rain outside the debtor's prison, holding a letter from her dying father. The ink was running, but the hatred was indelible. "Ashford destroyed us," it read. "He called in the loans, he took the manor. He laughed while they dragged me away. Avenge me, Clara, be the dagger in his heart." Clara had nothing left. No money, no home, no future. Only a beautiful face and a burning rage. She went to an apothecary in the darkest alley of London. She traded her mother's wedding ring for a vial of concentrated nightshade. Then she went hunting. She knew the Duke of Ashford was looking for a wife, not for love, but for appearances. He needed a quiet, docile woman to manage his estate while he focused on his business. Clara cut her hair. She bought a modest white dress with her last few coins. She forged a letter of introduction, claiming to be the daughter of a country parson. She met him at the Lady Danbury's ball. He was standing alone on the balcony, looking bored. He was younger than she expected, handsome in a sharp, dangerous way. Clara walked up to him. She played the part perfectly. The shy, innocent girl overwhelmed by the city. She dropped her fan. He picked it up. "You look like you would rather be anywhere else, Your Grace," she said softly. Julian looked at her. He studied her face with an intensity that made her shiver. "I would rather be in a library," he admitted. "And you?" "I would rather be honest," Clara said, planting the hook. Julian smiled. It was a rare, guarded smile. Honesty is a dangerous currency in London, Miss Vane, she lied. "Clara Vane." 2 weeks later, he proposed. It was a cold proposal. "I need a partner, not a romance," he told her. "I can offer you protection, wealth, and a library. I ask only for loyalty." Clara accepted. She felt a sick triumph. The monster had let the wolf into his house. The wedding was a blur of silk and lies, but it was the weeks that followed that confused her. She expected a tyrant. Her father had described Ashford as a cruel, greedy devil, but the man she lived with was quiet. He spent his evenings reading by the fire. He was polite to the servants. He never raised his voice. One evening, Clara found him in his study, surrounded by ledgers. He looked exhausted. "Is something wrong, my lord?" she asked, playing the concerned wife. He rubbed his temples. "Just debts, Clara, old debts." Clara smiled inwardly. "Good. Suffer." But then he sighed. "I am trying to keep the Foundling Hospital open. The board wants to close it to save money. If I don't find £1,000 by Friday, 100 children will be on the street." Clara paused. A hospital? Her father had never mentioned a hospital. "Why do you care?" she asked. "Because my father built it," Julian said, looking at the portrait above the mantel. "He was a hard man, a cruel man, but he built that hospital. It is the only good thing he left behind. I will not let it fall." Clara went to her room that night, confused. Her father had said Julian destroyed them, but Julian had only inherited the title 6 months ago. The timeline didn't fit. She began to dig. She used the master key to open Julian's private safe. She was looking for proof of his cruelty, something to steel her resolve. She found a file labelled The Vane Estate, her father's name. Her hands shook as she opened it. It contained the records of her father's loans, but they weren't called in by Julian, they were called in by the Crown. Her father hadn't been a victim, he had been an embezzler. He had stolen from the military pension fund. And there was a letter, from Julian to the magistrate. "Dated 3 months ago, sir. I understand Mr. Vane has passed away. I am paying his burial costs anonymously. Please ensure his daughter Clara is not held responsible for his crimes. I have cleared the outstanding balance on the Vane account myself. Let the girl start fresh." Clara dropped the letter. He knew. He had known who she was from the moment they met at the ball. He hadn't destroyed her family. He had saved her. He had paid off her father's theft out of his own pocket. And when she showed up with a fake name and a heart full of murder, he had married her. Why? The question burned in her mind. Why marry the daughter of a thief? Why sleep beside a woman who looked at you with hatred, unless he wanted to be punished? Clara looked at the date on the letter again. It was the day after his father died. Julian wasn't just paying a debt. He was carrying a burden of guilt for his entire family line. He saw Clara as his penance, which brought them back to this moment. 3 a.m., the storm, the poison. Julian lay on the pillow, waiting for death. "Why?" Clara whispered, the vial shaking in her hand. You knew who I was." "Since the first dance," Julian said calmly. "You have your father's eyes. And you married me anyway? I thought." Julian paused, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "I thought if I gave you a home, if I gave you kindness, you might change your mind. I thought I could save you from the hate." "And if I didn't change my mind?" Clara asked, tears streaming down her face. "If I killed you?" "Then the debt is paid," Julian whispered. "My father ruined yours. A life for a life." It seemed mathematically correct. Clara looked at him. This wasn't a monster. This was a man so broken by his own family's legacy that he was willing to let an assassin execute him just to balance the scales. He closed his eyes. "Do it, Clara. I am tired." Clara looked at the poison. It was the answer to all her anger. It was what she promised her father. But her father was a liar. And the man in front of her was the only person who had ever truly cared for her. She uncorked the vial completely. "Goodbye, Julian," she whispered. She tipped the bottle. Julian flinched, waiting for the burn, but the liquid didn't hit his lips. It hit the floor. Clara poured the entire contents onto the stone rug. The poison hissed as it ate into the wool. Julian's eyes flew open. He looked at the stain on the floor. Then he looked at her. "You missed," he said hoarsely. "I didn't miss," Clara sobbed. "I resigned." She dropped the empty vial. It shattered. She turned to run, to flee the room, to flee the shame of what she almost did. But Julian was faster. He sat up and grabbed her wrist. He pulled her down onto the edge of the bed. "Clara," he breathed. "Let me go," Clara wept, trying to pull away. "I am a monster. I came here to kill you. I am not a duchess. I am a murderer." "No," Julian said firmly. "You are a victim who realised she was holding the weapon." "That makes you a survivor." He pulled her closer. She collapsed against his chest, burying her face in his nightshirt, sobbing uncontrollably. He held her. He stroked her hair, rocking her while the storm raged outside. "Why?" she asked again, her voice muffled against him. "Why save me?" "Because," Julian whispered into her hair, "the night of the ball, when you dropped your fan, you looked so lonely. And I knew exactly how that felt. I didn't want to be alone anymore, Clara, even if the only person willing to stand beside me was my enemy." Clara looked up at him. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy. She had never felt more exposed. "I don't have a weapon anymore," she whispered. "Good," Julian smiled weakly. "Because I fired the food taster yesterday, I am entirely at your mercy." He kissed her forehead. "Go to sleep, Clara. We have a hospital to save in the morning, and I believe you owe me £1,000. I might have some jewellery I can sell," Clara sniffed. Julian laughed, a genuine warm laugh that chased the shadows from the corners of the room. "Keep your jewellery, Duchess. Just promise me one thing." "What?" "Next time you bring me a drink, try putting a little sugar in it. I have a sweet tooth. They didn't just save the hospital, they rebuilt the estate. They had 3 children. And every year, on their anniversary, Julian would give Clara a small blue glass vial, not filled with poison, but with perfume. A reminder that even the deadliest things can be transformed if you just pour them out. It's a dark story, isn't it? The line between love and hate is razor thin. Julian was willing to die to heal her hatred. That is a dangerous kind of love, a sacrificial love. And it brings us to the question of the day. Clara had every reason to hate him based on what she was told, but she chose to trust her own eyes instead of her father's words. How many of us are holding on to grudges that were passed down to us? How many of us are hating people because we were told they were the villain? If you think you're brave enough to drop the poison, hit that like button. It's a symbol of peace. And if you want to join a community that isn't afraid to look into the darkness and find the light, hit subscribe. We don't judge your past, we just want to be part of your future. Until next time, choose your targets wisely.